We're going.
We live here?
We're going.
We're live here on a crossover live after the game episode.
Oh.
Locked On Pelicans, Locked On Mavericks here, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, I believe, as we get it all set up.
Let's wait for some people to jump in. Test to make sure that it works.
Make sure. How's the audio sound, everyone? If you can let us know in the chat, that
let
is
us know
super helpful for everything here. It's going to be a little bit different than we normally do our shows here, since I got Nick coming in town.
Hello.
Oh yeah, we're live. Cool. Okay.
Got it?
Looks like
you can hear us
here. Okay.
Here we go. All right, let's start the real show. Ready?
Yeah.
3, 2. On today's show, let's talk about how the Dallas Mavericks destroyed the New Orleans Pelicans. What's wrong with the Pelicans, Zion and Ingram? We'll talk about all of that and more on today's Locked On Mavs, Locked On Pelicans crossover. And welcome. You were locked on to the Dallas Mavericks and the New Orleans Pelicans. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager for the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for being part of the show, making Locked On Mavs and Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. The best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day and to comment anything below. Let us know in the comment section what's one thing that stood out to you from this Mavs Pelicans game. Fascinated to see what the Pelicans fans answer about this as opposed to the Mavericks fans.
I'm looking at the chat here. It's nothing good right now.
It's coming in fast. They're angry about the Saints loss, and now they're going to be angry about the Pelicans loss.
For the Locked On Pelicans listeners here, since we're doing this on both channels right now, who looked worse, the Saints or the Pelicans today, offensively, defensively, literally everything?
And on the Mavs side, who looked better, the Cowboys or the Mavericks today? Look at that synergy.
All of the
Locked On Cowboys,
here.
Locked On Saints. Good friends there. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code LockedOnNBA. That's all lowercase, LockedOnNBA, for first deposit match up to $100. And joining me, and I'm joining him, Locked On Pelicans host. What you got for me, Jake Madison?
Oh, man. Well, look, at least we're eating well in New Orleans here. We've had fun. We were out, some purple drinks last night, some good food. We're going to have good food after this. So even after a bad Pelicans loss, I don't know. That's okay.
I almost didn't make it to the game because Jake tried to poison me last night. We went to...
He was willingly doing this.
I think it's the most I've ever drank in my life. We went to the oldest bar that I've ever seen. Maybe it's the oldest bar in America.
Lafitte's Blackman Shop for those in New Orleans.
And they had these purple drinks. And I'm like, man, it was a good time.
You had two of them.
I'm not going to lie, I did have two of them. I went and bought the second ones, which is probably me admitting guilt on that one. All right, let's talk about the Dallas Mavericks and the New Orleans Pelicans. The Mavs just blow out the Pelicans in this game. The offense opened in the third quarter, and they never really looked back.
No, it was really that third quarter barrage from three. I think they were 8 of 13 from three in that quarter that just buried the Pelicans. No, the Pelicans were on the stats. 47% from three in this game. It wasn't on the same kind of volume as the Dallas Mavericks did over, I think, 50 attempts for Dallas here. But it was interesting because in the first half of that game, right, they were like unloading from three. They were making threes, but it was also them just attacking the lane, getting baseline cutters that opened it up in the second half to leave those shooters wide open as New Orleans tried to take that away.
Yeah, the Mavs can just make any three, or they can create any wide open three whenever they want. But they took 53 in this one, made 20 of them, and you just the Pelicans took a normal amount of 36 threes, like a normal fine amount of threes.
That's actually a lot for them too.
But coming into this game, we knew that this Pelicans offense was, I didn't think they were going to be able to hold with the Mavericks, but the Mavericks have played some of these teams where, all right, the Mavs defense just can't hold up, and they get destroyed by the Ingrams and the Zions of the world, the stars on the other team, and it just never really happened.
No, the whole thing looked out of sync, right? And we'll talk about this a little bit more in another segment here to tease it ahead as we're professionals. And but no, again, it's just that right now I did a show on this last week of do Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson work? And honestly, they don't right now with the way the offense is designed, the way they're trying to run things. That's really disappointing because they have worked together in the past, but right now there's just no cohesion to anything. And when you come in against a hot shooting team, Kyrie couldn't miss for a while there. Other guys couldn't miss. There was just nothing that, they were going to score points in this, but they weren't going to score enough points, I thought, to be able to keep up and win this game.
Yeah, Kyrie being aggressive. That's one of the big stories for the Mavericks. 35 points for him in this one, his best offensive game so far. 7 of 10 from three, he couldn't miss. And it didn't really feel like anybody could stay in front of him. That's normally the case with Kyrie, that people can't stay in front of him, but it felt more often than this. Herb Jones didn't
I was going to say, not having Herb Jones is a real big deal in there. They're throwing Dyson Daniels on him a lot, Najee Marshall on him a lot. Dyson did a good job last season as a rookie in a couple of games against him, but not having Herb Jones in your shutdown wing guard backcourt stopper.
Yeah, no Herb Jones, no CJ McCollum, obviously, no Trey Murphy still. Jose Alvarado also
Still out.
You
need a guy to kind of pull the strings and run the offense a little bit in the absence of a lead guard with CJ. Larry Nance Jr. didn't play the second half.
Yeah, right. And so it just felt like they didn't have any answer for Kyrie, obviously. And then Luka just doing 30 points, 9 assists. There was a stretch in the third quarter where he really pushed it. Like he was the driving of that. I think slightly biased posted that he assisted or scored on 27 of 31 points and to start the third quarter. I mean, he was just dealing.
They scored on I think it was 11 straight possessions. I think the Dallas Mavericks did where New Orleans couldn't get a stop. And if that's going to happen, for a team that's supposed to be good defensively too, just not great. Turnovers too in the second quarter for New Orleans were rough and just that day for New Orleans pro sports.
And the Mavs depth I thought really stood out because you compare it to the Pelicans depth. The Pelicans are normally a deep team, but if you're missing that many guys that we pointed out, Mavs only missing Maxi Kleber. Derek Jones Jr. was out for 5 minutes. They said that he was questionable to return with a knee contusion, which is just a bruise. And then he came back and he started in the third quarter.
I mean, it's you look at it, you mentioned the depth, right? You had Jeremiah Robinson Earl playing significant minutes. He was just signed this week, I think.
Yeah.
You also had another two-way guy, Matt Ryan, who's coming back down to earth a little bit. Are you a little starstruck here?
No, I'm just hoping Derek Lively comes over and decides to join.
You want to join the show?
He just ran away.
We tried to get a guest on for him. That was good.
He's got things to do.
We got an extra mic for whoever wants to join us.
He's still mad at Isaac for saying that Dwayne Powell should start.
You? Okay.
To his face.
You said they should trade for Jonas Valanciunas the other night.
Well, I think they still need another rebounding center. Right? They still need that.
Right.
I mean, you can't go back to the Toronto loss and some other losses and be like, oh, they don't need any rebounding help anymore. All right, if they make all their threes, yes, they don't need any rebounding help, but they can still use it. I think he could be a good backup too. To Derek Lively, if he's okay with that role.
Backup, right? So now, maybe.
And, he's right in front of him. He struggled with fouls tonight again, and that's going to be a thing throughout his rookie season. He knows that. Coaches have told him that and all that. There's just no fault to the Mavs offensive game tonight. They just destroyed.
No, they made everything.
They were just dealing.
They were good. They played better. Also, they wanted it more, right? You saw New Orleans just not have the effort on a lot of this, right? There were rebounds that they grabbed off. There's a rebounding's been an issue for the Pelicans for a little bit now this season. They just don't corral them well. They were in their hands and would just lose it, and it leads to second chance points for a team like Dallas. And you don't want to give an already good offensive team all of those second chance points. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'll pull them up in a second. I'm curious, but that's gonna do it for you. If you get stops, you actually need to get stops, and they weren't doing that in this game.
We'll do more I'll ask you Pelicans questions, you'll ask me Mavericks questions a little bit later. But I want to start with one here. It's what happened with Zion? Because it felt like in the first half that he couldn't stop him. The only thing that was going to stop him was turnovers. He had 5 turnovers in the first half. And it was just okay, why don't you just keep going back to this over and over again?
Yeah, so that's something that I'm going to talk about on Locked On Pelicans for my listeners who are watching this right now. That's going to be on Tuesday's show. We're going to talk much more about that in the offense because we absolutely need to discuss how they need to do this. How many times did you see basically Zion not touch the ball in an offensive possession, whether Brandon Ingram was out there or not? And that just seems unacceptable at times. He is not in the best shape, I think. He doesn't look like Zion of old necessarily from last season when he was on a tear for the 29 games that he played. But they just need to get him home more. It's as simple as that. I don't know what else to say. He's your advantage creator. No one can stop him. This is a dude who shoots 70% at the rim. I don't know. Let him get the ball and go to the rim more than he does.
It's why there's so many stars in the NBA now that just start with the ball. Start possession with the ball, and you're like, oh, LeBron's a point guard, Luka's a point guard, oh, Harden becomes a point guard, oh, they're all these guys, and they just need to start Zion with the ball. Honestly,
if that's what's the Zion offense, it's as simple as that. They would look so much better, and they realize that's not a sustainable offense, right? If Zion's not there, you don't have an offensive system anymore. If your offensive system is give Zion the ball and let him do things. Yeah. So they're trying to do that because you can't rely on his health necessarily. But at the same point in time, that's probably the way you need to run your offense, and that's what the Pelicans probably need to be doing more of. And the fact that they're not is leading to some of these weirdly disjointed possessions where why is a guy like Dyson Daniels have the ball in his hands the whole time instead of Zion touching it at all, even when Brandon Ingram's not out there on the court.
Weird possessions for the Pelicans, but amazing possessions for the Mavericks. Coming up, I want to talk about if the Mavericks offense has figured it out. Jake's going to ask me some Mavericks questions. We'll get into that and more coming up. Super smooth transition. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Get a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks is the...
I think he died.
You still have audio?
I don't know. We're going to find out.
Back on?
There's an audio or not. Find out. I don't know why that turned off. Okay, we're back. We should be
Back on?
Yeah. I think did the audio cut out for anybody there? Hopefully not. The audio's back on now at the very least. So that's good. Check your recording. Should it be on the applicant?
Check.
That looked like it was still going, I guess.
Well, there it stopped.
Oh, okay. I don't know what happened. They.
All right.
Watch
Okay.
out.
He said they're all back. The audio's fine. All right. PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. All you do is you go to prizepicks.com. You pick the more or less on the projection for a player with their points, the rebounds, assists. You can add NFL to it. You can add all kinds of different stuff to it. You can combine it. So let's say I want to pick the, more or less on Zion Williamson. It's like 25.5 points or something like that. If I want to pick the more or less on Jameis Winston interceptions. I don't know,
He played in that game.
Do I do that for the Saints? More or less on that. You can combine those together, do the power play and all that, and you can win some money on that. Go check out prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code LockedOnNBA for first deposit match up to $100. And they have a reboot policy. So if one of your players gets injured for football or basketball games, you have a player that exits the game in the first half and do not return to the second, they are rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. Again, check it out. PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Code LockedOnNBA. First deposit match up to $100. Thanks for joining the show, hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, Locked On Pelicans. Nick Angstadt here from Locked On Mavs. And Jake, it's time to ask me about the Dallas Mavericks. We'll talk about this game. We'll talk about anything else. Ask me some Dallas Mavericks questions.
So one of the things we talked about this, John Krause and I on Locked On NBA, make that your second listen today and every day this week. I'm a pro, especially on Wednesdays. And then Nick's on Thursdays day afternoon. So there we go. We talked about Dallas. We did a real thing on every Wednesday that we do, and we did a whole show of it last week. And one of the questions was, is Dallas kind of for real, or is this maybe, they're 8-2? Is that the record?
8-2 now, man.
They're taking care of business. The schedule's been a little bit soft.
Yep.
How much are you buying into them, say, being a top 4 seed in the Western Conference right now, or do you still need to see them maybe prove it against some of the top teams in the West?
I think to be a top 4 team, if you're talking about that, if you're talking about are the Mavericks a real contender or not, you do have to see them against some better opponents, right? Like we saw them against Denver, they got crushed. We saw them against a bigger wing team in the Raptors, and they got crushed on the boards against that too. And so I do think we need to see them against some better teams like that. But I do think that what they're doing is real. Jase said 10 games in, you know a little bit more about the rotation and know about how players, like Derek Lively and others are fitting into the Mavs rotation. And I think that right now we kind of have figured out what the rotation is, and it works. Some of the new offensive stuff that they're doing obviously works. You can just tell from this game tonight. The number that I've been watching for the Mavericks, one of the things they really want to do is push the pace in transition, and push the pace to create more offensive transition chances. Them pushing the pace off of a live rebound, so like Derek Lively gets a defensive rebound and they kick it out.
We almost got him on the show.
Yeah, almost did. He acknowledged us during the show.
That was fun.
He did not want to. He was like, he ran away. He did not want to join us. But they get a defensive rebound and they push it in transition. They do that 30% of the time or more in a game. They're 4-0. Now it's 5-0 that they've done that, because there was like 50% of the time in this game because they just pushed off of every single one of them. So things like that, the Mavericks are really that's becoming real. Like some slight adjustments, some off-ball movement, things like that becomes real for the Mavericks. And I think that's something that is real that we can see.
Yeah, looking at them, I like them. Like, I think they look good. The offenses look good. You and I were talking before the game ended too about how they're using Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving a little bit more together than they have in the past, I think. And that seems to be better. It doesn't look as disjointed as it did last time. Maybe the Pelicans need to take a note of that. We'll get to that probably here in a second. Has that been a big part of kind of like supercharging the offense?
The supercharging the offense with Luka and Kyrie,
yeah.
They are starting to play off each other more. You can tell, and they were really embarrassed by the end of the season, which they should have been. They were embarrassed by the end of game stuff. They worked on a ton of stuff. The end of game, last couple of seconds on the shot clock kind of stuff. Like they worked on some of that in their cohesion, and I feel like they've kind of figured each other out. It took Kyrie and Luka 10 or so games from last season. They didn't really even play that much together when they were 5-11 last year, so they played 16 games together. It took them that long to figure out, all right, this is what you like to do, this is what I like to do. Let's figure out how to play together. They've been running more like screen and roll off each other. If one of them has a matchup that is more favorable for them, they switch stuff. And Kyrie's really been the one that's pushed the pace. He's been the one that has really pushed the Mavericks need to push out and transition more. He's really kept Luka honest with that. And honestly, I think one of the things is Kyrie does not give up on defense. He's not Harden. He's not, old Westbrook, where Westbrook would just die, off ball. Every once in a while he'll fall asleep. But right. I think he's helping Luka push himself forward too. And I think that's on defense. And I think that's something the Mavericks just sorely need.
No, I mean, if you those two to even just be middle of the road, mediocre at worst on defense, that's going to elevate them a little bit, especially with some of the other role players they have that kind of fill a lot of that. You add in the offense is going to make it tough. It puts teams like the Pelicans in a disadvantage where they feel they need to shoot more. Maybe they're not a good 3-point shooting team. Leads to easier defense, at least protecting the paint a little bit more, things like that. When we were at lunch at Elizabeth's today, brunch was delicious. Ordered 2 entrees because he wanted to try everything, by the way. We're eating well in New Orleans. Coach Sean is next after we do this live show tonight here.
I'm excited.
Awesome. We talked a little bit about Jason Kidd, though, too. You know, and he seems like he's done a good job or a better job this year than he did at the end of last season, too, where it seemed like he just kind of gave up, which is a little weird to say for your head coach.
Hey, he's not playing. He's watching, just like us. That's what he said at the end of last year. We also asked him if he's concerned. When will we be concerned if the Mavericks the Mavericks are about to miss the playoffs? When will you be concerned? I'll be concerned when the Mavericks miss the playoffs.
It's not a great comment.
The end of last season, the Locked On Mavs fans know, the Raccoon Squad knows, he had quit on the end of last season. You could just tell he did not believe, either he didn't fully quit, he just didn't believe that his team could win, right? And so mentally he just kind of checked out. And so this season, though, he feels like he's got the guys, and he kind of has to, because it could be some hot water if he doesn't, right? They don't perform this season after how bad last season was. And so, I think that he feels like he has the leaders on the court, which is a huge thing. Grant Williams has been big. Kyrie's been a little more vocal. Luka has stepped into a leadership role and knows I've got to make up for last season because that was just embarrassing overall. And they've got really good young players who really for lack of a better term, compliant and respectful and that's what all the vets have been saying is that these guys respect them, they listen, they take things to heart, they take criticism, they take all that and they go forward. They had the big talk after the Raptors loss where they were being soft and Jason Kidd called them soft and the whole team responded. The Luka and Kyrie thing has been a lot better this season, and I think with Jason Kidd, he's doing things that are working. Derek Jones Jr. starting has been working. Derek Lively starting has been working. All of it.
So when you look at this game that's coming up on Tuesday, in-season tournament, we're getting the purple court, so I'll be live on my show after the game Tuesday, at least down here, because I want to try and get that in the shot. Now that we got a camera working, which I haven't had working for me the past couple of live shows I've done in the arena. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait. If the Pelicans want to win that game, what's 1 or 2 changes you think they need to make to try and beat the Dallas Mavericks?
Well, I think the giving Zion the ball, it's got to be defensively because I feel like the Pelicans offense was still good, so you got to keep exploiting that. And I feel like defensively, you look back at what the Bulls did and what the Raptors did against Luka, because they tried to really make him score, took away the passes, they doubled him off the ball, and you try to make some of the other guys beat you. And it's kind of how you have to beat the Mavericks is hope that a Josh Green or a Derek Jones Jr. or somebody else is not hitting in threes as high as they were in this game tonight. I feel like that's kind of the way to do it. Or just hope that Kyrie or Luka have a bad game.
But when you're playing soft defense on them like they were, good luck with that, right? The threes they were taking were just wide open the majority of the game. One, they were trying to kind of defend the paint early on after getting ripped in the first half, led to these open 3-point shots in the second. You also then had the reverse of that in the first half of it too, where just awful defensive night for New Orleans.
Oh, just definitely terrible. And you got to kill them on the glass too. The Mavericks got to get destroyed in rebounding if that's something that you really.
Easier said than done for the Pelicans right now. We're the worst defensive rebounding team in the league, so that's a wonderful thing.
That's one of the Mavs' weaknesses, and I pointed that out on subtext. I texted everybody some notes before. I was like, hey, watch out for rebounding because the Mavericks usually get destroyed in rebounding. The Pelicans don't rebound. So coming up, though, let's talk about the Pelicans. I'm going to ask you some questions about Zion, Brandon Ingram, the whole thing. How's it working? Talk about that coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Jase Medical solved the problem that I had never really even considered before. I think that Jase Medical is something that everybody should have. They have 5 antibiotics that help you in times of crisis. When you have an emergency, you have something that you need to fix, you have an infection or something, they help you with. They have a little booklet that tells you when to take some of that stuff and to fix it. So go and check out Jase Medical. Go online right now to jasemedical.com. Receive your 12-month supply of your daily medication. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. A verified customer said this about Jase Medical. I am thankful for the service. Supply chain issues had me to cut pills in half to order it. I ordered most of my daily meds with a year's supply. I also ordered an antibiotic kit. I feel secure. Prices are lower than local pharmacies, and I highly recommend this for everyone. So check out jasemedical.com, Jase medical.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase, jasemedical.com. All right, Jake, let's talk about the New Orleans Pelicans. Seamless transition, and the audio didn't go off this time.
Yeah, we're rolling now.
Let's talk about the New Orleans Pelicans.
Hit me.
The Ingram is up. I know you've been harping on this on your show, and we talked about it a little bit today, how it just doesn't feel like those two are working together. It has worked in the past. What's the difference this year from last year with Ingram and Zion?
You know, it's partially how they're trying to utilize their offense, what we were just talking about, right? Where they've run point Zion in the past. And part of it's always worked because, look, they haven't played that many games together. So you look at their offense, they go, Ingram's still good, but he's been playing without Zion. Zion might be playing without Ingram. That's definitely a thing, too. So I think it kind of maybe blinds us a little bit to have they actually worked. And it's annoying because literally every year I do an episode because the narrative starts, we don't know if they work together. The numbers do say that they do based on how they played in the past, but this year when they're trying to use Zion off ball a little bit more, it just feels like a waste of his talent. There's no reason a guy like Zion Williamson should be standing in the short corner waiting to get the ball. He's not a three-point shooter. You don't need him in that anchor spot. He's best with the ball in his hands, drawing 2, 3, 4 guys sometimes like that, I think. And he just does a better job. He's more efficient than Brandon Ingram is with the ball in his hands. Ingram's more of a mid-range shooter. He's good at those shots, don't get me wrong, but at the same point in time, long mid-range shots aren't what you want being taken in the NBA. And
Ingram was killing on those in the first half.
Yeah. But if you go cold for a little bit with that, your offense starts to fall apart, and you're relying on basically tough shot making for 48 minutes, which doesn't seem like a sustainable way to actually build your offense. So Zion doesn't have the ball in his hands. He's off ball. They're not using him as a screener. They're not using him in pick and rolls for Brandon Ingram. And then the same, when Zion gets the ball, you have Brandon Ingram in the corner or on the three-point line. He doesn't take enough threes. He took just 3 attempts in this game. They need the shooting. They need the spacing. Their spacing's been real poor because your starting lineup has one shooter in CJ McCollum in it. Zion's not a shooter. Brandon Ingram's not a shooter. Now, shooters who have multiple threes in this game maybe is a shooter, I guess, here. But Herb Jones isn't a shooter. Dyson Daniels isn't. Maybe when they get Trey Murphy back, the spacing gets a little bit better. But you see Zion struggling to score at the rim right now because he's running to 3-4 guys, and he's just not finishing like he has in the past. And it just creates this mess of a problem.
Is Zion playing himself into shape?
Yeah, there's some of that. There's some of that going on right now. You can see this last year too, right? He missed the whole year previously. The first month wasn't his best, and then he hit December, and that dude was averaging over 30 points per game during that time, scoring like we've really never seen before. Part of it is just play him in shape. That's why I think people were very upset when he took the second night of a back-to-back off last week or the week before, where even Coach K said the way Zion stays in shape is by playing basketball. He missed a game the other night due to personal reasons. We're assuming it's like the birth of his child. That one makes sense. Congrats. But yeah, congrats. So, there's still, I had Will Guillory of The Athletic on my show for my everydayers when they listen to that. He was not panicking just yet because they'll get Trey Murphy back. Zion will get in shape. Things you can't look this bad. Yeah, we got a Pels pickup game.
there's basketballs flying around everywhere. They're playing knockout, I think, and so if one of these people miss really bad, it's coming right for us. The Ingram Zion duo thing is fascinating because you're like people start the narrative of this can't work, which is exactly what the narrative was all offseason for the Mavericks. Right. Luka and Kyrie can't work. It just took some rhythm. Like they just both needed to get a rhythm, and when both their shots start falling, all of a sudden then they're more open to the two-man stuff, right? The team starts to run some more of that, and then all of a sudden like the flow looks a little bit better. And so I wonder if there's some of that like time, but with the Pelicans, they've had some of that time, right? Like,
yeah, I mean the other thing is, look, Brandon Ingram missed 3-4 games earlier in the season already. Zion wasn't there playing with him. Zion missed a game or two here and there, and it's just like, when are they going to ever get up the on-court time to figure some of this stuff out? Will they get the on-court time to figure some of this stuff out? That's kind of like the open question, I think, around some of this that makes us like nervous. You'd also like to see them involved in two-man actions for each other. Like, why don't they run a single pick and roll involving those two guys together? Did you see one? Like,
no.
Like, there was no actions between the two of them. They're using, they use Jordan Hawkins to screen for Zion a lot, to have him pick and pop out to the three-point line to pull that defender away because he's a shooter. If Brandon Ingram's taking more threes, could you have B.I. screening for Zion, popping out to the three-point line, launching those threes when he's open and start making those, and then the court gets spaced better? I'm going to be talking more about this on my show on Tuesday because I want to dive into this, because just what they're doing offensively just looks bad, and it devolves into just isolation-style ball where you get Zion turning it over 5 times in the first half of this game.
Yeah. With Ingram, do you think there's he had kind of a disappointing run with Team USA this summer. Do you think there's any of that shook some confidence, or he started the season a little slow because of it?
He didn't. So when I talked to him like media day, he didn't seem to think so. And he even had his.
Imagine if he did though.
Yeah,
Imagine he came to you and was like, "Hey Jake, you know what? That Team USA thing is really gonna mess me up this year."
Like, they used him as a role player on Team USA. Like, that's not him, right? Like, he needs the ball in his hands. He's just not a spot up 3-point shooter. When you had Anthony Edwards kind of running that team, which was fine. It worked. They were winning games until they weren't. Ingram's just not a complimentary player, in my opinion. He's just not suited for an off-ball kind of role necessarily. He doesn't take enough threes, I think, right? Yeah. So how do you do that when Zion has the ball in his hands? And they tried to remedy this by putting the ball in Brandon Ingram's hands and using Zion off ball, and that's just suboptimal all around. And that's why I do think there's some of the question of, like, do these two guys work together?
There's kind of some of that with Luka, with like his catch and shoot threes. Luka would never hit catch and shoot threes, and this year he's finally starting to get it and like finally starting to hit them. There's just some players. I wish Luka, before, when he couldn't, he would just do like a step back three in a catch and shoot situation, right? Like, get that rhythm. And I wonder if Ingram's one of those players that just like needs that rhythm of all right, I dribble a little bit, I create, I get my space, and I shoot. And like, but if he's not going to be a complimentary player, if he's not good at that, then like, how does that pair ever work? And how does he become part of a
valid question, right?
Like, team playoff run even?
I think it's the open question right now. Look, Ingram's extension eligible. He's got one more year in his deal after this, but he could get a supermax, and he's got to play at a high level. Well, from the Pelicans.
From who?
That's another question of, would you want to give him a supermax deal if you were eligible for it? And I think that scares me a little bit right now, based on his play and the lack of like working well off ball. But that's also on the coaching staff to find the right role for him and how to figure out how to balance these two guys. We talked about this earlier. We were talking about Jason Kidd and stuff like that, where you had told me there's maybe 5 coaches who make a difference in a positive way, maybe 5 who hurt your team because they're so bad, and then 20 in the middle. And it's like, where's Willie Green starting to fall kind of on that scale here is where I'm wondering. And I don't know, just they haven't designed the offense well around these guys. You're hitting your threes. 47% is good. You had Hawkins hit multiple threes. Matt Ryan hit multiple threes. Valanciunas hit multiple threes. Dyson Daniels hit 3 threes. Jeremiah Robinson Earl hit 3 threes. And you couldn't capitalize on it.
Yeah, I felt like a lot of those were in the fourth quarter. They scored 39 points.
Well, that was when Matt Ryan hit all of this.
And then Jonas, the Mavs didn't even guard him to 3. Like, they didn't even respect him at all, which I was a little surprised by, but they didn't even have Lively go out and like contest those.
Yeah, but that makes sense to me. We should ask him.
What? Oh, about Lively? Hey, Lively, why did you not contest?
Yeah, what's going on there?
Why didn't you contest Jonas' 3? He would run away again.
Yeah, probably.
Which is this team ever going to get healthy altogether? It just doesn't feel like they ever do.
Man, trust me, if I had the answer to that, we go
CJ's going to come back soon.
So CJ's going to come back sooner rather than later. They feel pretty good about that, and that it's not like a huge lung puncture collapse thing.
Jeez.
Trey Murphy should be back around the beginning of December, and I think that's going to be the biggest difference maker. And I think you could make an easy argument right now that you need to start Trey Murphy eventually over Herb Jones in that starting lineup. Sacrifice the defense for the 3-point shooting, the court spacing, and a little bit more height, which maybe helps with some of the defensive rebound issues But, it's also going to come down to how do they involve Jonas Valanciunas and do things properly with him, too. It's going to be a big part of the problem. They want to play small, they want to play fast, but he doesn't fit into that, but then it leads to those defensive rebounding issues. If they can find a way to kind of mitigate some of that, this team still has talent to be good with everything. It's just taking them longer than you'd like to find out in a little year.
Yeah. Which injury hurts them worse right now with this lineup they have? CJ or Trey Murphy?
Let's see. Oh, that's a good question.
You didn't know which one I was going with?
No, I wasn't actually sure which players you would say that. I thought maybe you'd say Larry Jr. But no, it's CJ, right? He's played really well this year. He's a volume 3-point guy that's averaging over 8 attempts per game, shooting 40-something%. Like, you need that guy out there on the court right now. You can also lead that second unit at times if he's done this.
Yeah.
He's the reason they had that comeback win over the Oklahoma City Thunder where they just spaced the court and let him attack and make threes. Like, he's a really important player for the team. Also just adds that, like, veteran stability out there when things are kind of, like, falling apart. You can run your offense if you need him to or one. That, I think, is all going to be really, really important on the team.
There you go. Thanks for hanging out with us, Locked On Mavs, Locked On Pelicans. The crossover, I'm back tomorrow. Lauren Gunn is coming on the show, so we've got that. We'll talk all about the Mavericks offense with Mavericks for real. Locked On Pelicans tomorrow.
We're going to be breaking down the offense a little bit more, trying to figure out what's going on with Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, how they can try and remedy this. I got an interesting trade target for later in the week for the everydayers too.
Just destroyed me on the tees. Just destroyed me on the under the table.
He's like technically my podcast boss, so I've got to do a good job here and try and impress him with everything.
Locked On Mavs will come back tomorrow if Jake Madison has not murdered me by then, or the city of New Orleans. If I make my flight, basically.
Oh, we're going to eat well tonight. We're going to eat well tonight. I'm excited.
Thanks so much for hanging out with Locked On Mavs, Locked On Pelicans. Peace out. Boom!